잠시 후 이방동포의 국내 정
Ladies and gentlemen, the policy consultation meeting on domestic settlement support for overseas Korean adoptees will begin. Please proceed to the hall and take your seats.
행사 관계자 여러분들께서는
Staff members, I ask all of you to support us so that the participants can proceed to the hall and take your seats.
네. 제가 모시고 오라고 그럼 될 것 같아요. 그리고 얘기하시고 세 번째 좀 앉아 계세요. 네. 모시고 오면 될 것 같아요. 네, 그러시죠. 네, 앉으시면 돼요. 행사가 곧 시작되오니
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll shortly commence the policy roundtable. Please take your seats. At the event, please, we would appreciate if you could please switch off your mobile phone or switch to the vibration mode.
금일 이방동포의 국내 정책을
Today's policy roundtable on domestic and overseas adoptees is hosted by Overseas Korean Agency organized by Global Overseas Adoptees Link. On your table, you will find Korean English interpretation receivers. Channel 1 is for Korean, Channel 2 is for English. Let me briefly emphasize that we are broadcasting live via YouTube. Allow me to briefly explain the order of today's proceeding. We'll soon begin the opening ceremony, national anthem, introductions of the distinguished guests, commemorative remarks by the commissioner, and also the remark will be given by the mayor of Seo-daemun District, director of the Populations and Child Policy Bureau of Ministry of Health and Welfare, and also senior advisors of GOL. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Director Lee Hyun-jun of Overseas Korean Agency. I'll be your MC today. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend today's event. We'll now officially begin the policy consultation meeting. Before we officially begin, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance to the national flag. Please stand up and face the flag. Salute to the national flag. Rest. We will now have a moment of silent tribute to the patriotic forebears and fallen heroes who sacrificed for the nation. Silence.
바로
At ease, please be seated. Now I'd like to introduce the distinguished guest attending today. First, Commissioner Lee Sang-deok of Overseas Korean Agency. Mayor Lee Sung-hun of Seodaemun District Office. Director Kim Sang-hee of Population and Child Policy Bureau, Ministry of Health and Welfare. Senior Advisor Yoo Jae-hoon of Global Overseas Adoptees Link or GOL. Director General Kim Min-chul of Overseas Korean Agency. President Kim Jin-suk of Eastern Social Welfare Society. President Shin Mi-suk of Holt Children's Service. President Lee Myung-rim of Korean Social Service Society. President Kim Kang-dae-sung of Korea Social Welfare Society. President Yang Kun-yul of Adoption Family Counseling Association. Now, I'd like to invite Commissioner Lee Sang-deok to deliver the opening remark. Please welcome him with big round of applause.
여러분
Good afternoon. I'm Lee Sang-deok, Commissioner of the Overseas Korean Agency. I would like to thank the Mayor Lee Sung-hun from Seodaemun District and Senior Advisor Yoo Jae-hoon from GOL and Director General Kim Sang-hee from the Ministry of Health and Welfare and Miss Amanda Jo. Can I call her representative of the adoptees living in the United States, and also experts from various areas of our life. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is being broadcast live around the world, right? I need to be careful about what I'm saying today. As you're well aware, 2 years ago, Overseas Korean Agency was established. We have our office in Songdo, Incheon, and that has set the ground for establishment of the Basic Act for overseas Koreans. And according to the definition of overseas Koreans, it also includes adopted Koreans living overseas. They are regarded as overseas Koreans. So adopted compatriots, they deserve the legal supports they deserve. Regarding adopted compatriots, there are sometimes negative articles run by Korean newspapers, and it could be one of the issues that is stuck in the shadow of Korean economic growth. Nobody wanted to talk about this issue out in the open, but our overseas adoptees there are about 200,000 overseas adoptees living in the US and Europe. They have grown up to be great grown-ups, and they're having children these days. They are growing into great contributors of our society, and they are members of overseas Koreans, and it's high time the Korean government treats them as a valuable asset of Korea and provide them with appropriate level of support. Of course, adopted compatriots, they have been sent overseas through various routes, and the Korean government should help them to adapt successfully in the overseas countries or also in Korea as well. That is one of the basic duties of the Korean government. And we have a service center at Gwanghwamun area for Overseas Korean Agency, and we have opened the dedicated overseas adoptee service desks. And when adoptees come to Korea to trace their families, they need administrative services. But up until now, it was cumbersome for them because they had to visit multiple government agencies. And in order to resolve those inconveniences, we have provided a one-stop dedicated service desks for overseas adoptees. Of course, we need some time for this service desks to be fully functional, but I hope you can share the news and information about this desk with many people so that adoptees can come to Korea and benefit from the government service. And it could also serve as a bridge between the Korean government and adoptee communities overseas. Up until now, we haven't had many opportunities to have this kind of dialogue, but we now have the Overseas Korean Agency and the NCRC, GOAL, and various NGOs need to work together to develop this kind of platform. And today's policy consultation meeting could be seen as a first step in that journey. So in today's meeting, we can talk about vocational training support or various supports for adoptees to settle down in Korea. In November this year, OKA will be hosting a overseas adoptees conference, and we'll be having a large-scale conference of adoptees from all over the world. And middle of next month, I will be visiting France because in France alone, there are 20,000 Korean adoptees. I will talk to them. and adopted compatriots need to have more communication with the Korean government, and we are going to develop the platform to do that. Of course, OKA cannot do this alone. We need the support from the mayors of Seodaemun District, Senior Advisor Yu from Go, Ministry of Health and Welfare, and Dongbang Welfare Center, Holt Children's Welfare Center. We need to work with these civic organizations. It is high time for the Korean government to do what it needs to do for adopted compatriots. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Next, we'd like to invite Mayor Lee Sung-hun of Seodaemun District, who will be giving us congratulatory remarks. Please welcome Mayor Lee with a big round of applause. I am Mayor Lee Sung-hun of Seodaemun District Office. First of all, congratulations on the successful hosting of the policy consultation meeting on domestic settlement support for overseas Korean adoptees. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'd like to express my deepest thanks to Commissioner Lee Sang-deok of all the members of the GOL for their tireless support overseas adoptees for over the past few decades. In the morning, he briefly talked about the organization of East Society Welfare, and in 1950, ever since that, the total number of children being adopted amount to about 49,000. Out of that, 35,000 were adopted by 14 countries, and 14,000 were adopted domestically. And the Center for Eastern Welfare is located in Seodaemun District. I'm very pleased to meet you all, and also I'd like to express my gratitude. And I believe since I am working as the mayor of Seodaemun District, that is why the organizer has invited me. Overseas Koreans amount to about 200,000 according to the Commissioner Lee, and should I say manpower of these 200,000, which is huge. In order to survive, Korea needs to do a lot of business activity in foreign market, but 200,000 Koreans are outside Korea, and if we work together, we can definitely create a huge synergy effect. Of course, among them, some of them come back to Korea, and we need to create an environment where these returned adoptees can settle in Korea. That's critical. However, Korean adoptees living around the world, we need to form a great network so that we can maximize their talent and then connect that to Korea. And I believe that's the role we need to focus on. So in light of that, Overseas Korean Agency was launched, and in a systematic way, we are trying to take care of that. And adoptees returning to Korea, we need to make sure that we need to not to look at them with a full of prejudice, but rather we need to understand that they desire to come back to Korea. We need to welcome them with open arms and then help them so that they can settle in Korea. We need to make a joint effort. Seodaemun District Office, in light of that, will make strenuous effort so that we can create an environment where we can all share the cultures and everything. If you look at Seodaemun District Office, there are many Korean adoptees returned to Korea. However, we don't have any framework or systems to support them so that they can settle in the Korean society. However, policy consultation meeting like today can provide a great forum where we can discuss about and ways to help them so that they can come back here, settle here, and then return the favors that they have received. We can do that. And Overseas Korean Agency has prepared today's meeting where we can invite all the overseas Korean adoptees, and although their language, their backgrounds are different, we can definitely provide a foundation where all of these overseas Korean agencies can come back and live harmoniously. Korea's status, the country of Korea, its status is very different. We need to make sure to mobilize the talent and also the manpower of these overseas Korean adoptees, and the government should play a leading role to do that. Once again, Seo District Office will take active part in leading that. Congratulations on the successful opening of the meeting. Thank you. Once again, the Mayor Lee Sung-hun of Seo District Office. Next, we'd like to invite Director Kim Sang-hee of Population Mobility Policy Division's Ministry of Health and Welfare. Please welcome Director Kim Sang-hee.
Good afternoon. I'm Director General Kim Sang-hee from the Ministry of Health and Welfare, responsible for Population Mobility Policy Division. I would like to welcome all the adoptees from all over the world, and I would like to thank Overseas Korean Agency, the Global Overseas Adoptees Link, related organizations for preparing today's event. Today's gathering is a valuable opportunity to explore policy directions that will help adoptees who have built their lives abroad for many years reconnect and unite with their homeland. It's an honor for me to extend my greetings here today on behalf of the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Over the past several decades, approximately 160,000 children from Korea have been adopted overseas. While these efforts aim to provide permanent families to children who could not be raised by their birth families, it also reflects a painful part of our history, the reality that our country was unable to fully embrace and care for them. Reflecting on this history, we believe that improving adoption practices as part of a stronger family welfare policy and supporting the lives and protecting the rights of adoptees and their families are important duties of the nation. The Ministry of Health and Welfare has been working on establishing adoption procedures that prioritize the best interest of the child. As a result of these efforts, on July 19th, the Act on International Adoption and the Special Act on Domestic Adoption will come into effect to implement the Hague Convention on Protection of Children. Going forward, the national and local governments will be responsible for the full process of domestic and inter-country adoption, as well as post-adoption support. The introduction of this system will mark a significant step toward protecting the rights and welfare of adoptees. In addition, we'll continue to expand our support for the healthy lives of adoptees and their families. We plan to integrate the adoption information disclosure system under a public institution, helping domestic and overseas adoptees learn about their adoption background and find their birth families. Moreover, we'll actively support opportunities for adoptees to share information, collaborate with one another both overseas and in Korea, and better understand the Korean language, writing system, and culture. The government will continue to improve policies so that each overseas adoptee is respected as a citizen of Korea and lead a safe and dignified life. I hope today's meeting will become a warm and heartfelt space for genuine exchange, contributing to the advancement of policies for adoptees. We will listen carefully to the voices shared here today and use them as a valuable compass to guide the future direction of government policies. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director General Kim, for your kind, encouraging words. Now we would like to invite the host organization, Senior Advisor Yu Jae-hoon from Global Overseas Adoptees Link.
안녕하세요.
Hello, everyone. I am Senior Advisor Yu Jae-hoon of Global Overseas Adoption Link. From 2020 till 2022, I have served as the chair, but then I had no choice but to quit working as the chair, and now I'm back here working as a senior advisor. I am truly grateful to be here today. Honorable Commissioner Lee Sang-duk of Overseas Korean Agency, and also Director Kim Sang-hee, Mayor Lee Sung-hun, thank you once again. Under the theme of domestic settlement support for overseas Korean adoptees, we are gathered here today, which we are truly grateful. Once again, thank you very much to all the government officials. Global Overseas Adoptees Link, or GOAL, is an agency that provides services, especially a typical post-adoption support that provides necessary service for the growth of adoptees, especially adoptees during the age of very young, like a child, or after adult. That kind of agency is a separate one. We do understand that there are different adoptees from different countries, and we need to make sure to pursue political and ideological neutrality and do not align with any specific religious value. In line with the identity of the organization run by adoptees, most of the staff, including the executive directors, are adoptees. However, the board of directors, including the chairpersons, consist of majority of non-adoptees to ensure the balance and divisions of the roles within the government structure. This unique identity of Global Organizations of Adopted Koreans, or GOL, has served as a catalyst for its growth, and with the support of the Korean government, it has carried out various support programs such as helping adoptees. In 1989, we came into being, and it is now regarded as a natural thing, but at the time, we tried to help them to search for their birth parents or try to provide support so that they can learn their mother tongue, and all kinds of support were provided. Now's the time that the government pays extra attention, and then we are very grateful that they are doing that. The greatest challenge came when the COVID-19 hit Korea. So that was 2020 to 2022. It was impossible for overseas Korean adoptees to visit Korea, and adoptees living in Korea, especially the overseas Korean adoptees, they have the most fragile jobs, like they are IT engineers or English instructors. They all lost their jobs. And during the global COVID-19 crisis, the government subsidy were mostly focused on the Korean citizens or Korean residents, not the overseas Korean adoptees. So the overseas Korean adoptees had a huge challenge, but Ministry of Health and Welfare provided special relief to the overseas Korean adoptees. About 200,000 adoptees living abroad, they contributed donations, and rather we have experienced like a miracle event, which means that there was an increasing number of the memberships and donations from over 200,000 adoptees living abroad. So we were able to maintain our organization, as the Commissioner Lee Sang-duk mentioned. We were able to open a dedicated service desk for Korean adoptees at the Overseas Korean Agency, which we are truly grateful. The future of GOAL, or Global Overseas Adoptee Link, is very different. Our goal is not limited to simply finding the past of our adoptees and solving their difficult living conditions. So of course, that is important, but we aspire to contribute to more mature international civic consciousness among the Koreans, core nations in the international community, and to foster a society where Koreans and foreigners with diverse backgrounds can coexist harmoniously. We don't want to stop there. Furthermore, As Director Kim Sang-hee mentioned, as the UN conventions provide protections, the welfare, the rights of the children need to be protected, and we will pursue global missions to demonstrate and share best practices that enhance the rights and well-being of children in the complex process of cross-border adoptions. So, we really would like to provide the best practices so that we can share our best practices around the world. That is our visions. And to realize that visions, we will work and we'll do our best effort. Thank you very much once again for hosting today's meeting. Thank you.
예, 해외입양연대
So thank you very much, Senior Advisor Yu from Go. Last but not least, he could not join here because of another engagement, but President Chung Ik-jun from NCRC will deliver congratulatory video message.
Good afternoon. I am President Chung Ik-jung of the National Center for the Rights of the Child. I extend my sincere congratulations on the hosting of the Policy Roundtable on Domestic Resettlement Support for Overseas Adoptees. I extend my heartfelt appreciation to Commissioner Lee Sang-duk of Overseas Korean Agency along with all the representatives from the OCA and GOL. I also would like to thank Mayor Lee Sung-hun of Seodaemun District Office, Director Kim Sang-hee of Ministry of Health and Welfare, President Yoo Jae-hoon of Korea Deposit Insurance Cooperation, and all the other attendees. My special thanks goes to the experts from the academia and also the panelists. This coming July, Korea adoption system will undergo significant change with the implementations of the Special Adoption Act and Act on the Inter-Country Adoptions. The adoption system, which has been operated mainly by private adoption agencies, will be replaced by public adoption system led by the state. The National Center for the Right of the Child is working diligently to prepare for this transition, supporting Korea's ratifications of the Hague Conventions on inter-country adoptions, establishing an integrated archive for adoptions records, centralizing adoptions information disclosure service. We will continue to review and consider the best way to ensure the service provided smoothly in accordance with the implementation of the law. The National Center for the Rights of the Child will also listen carefully to various opinions discussed at today's forum and will work closely with OCA and other relevant agencies to support overseas adoptees. We kindly request your support in strengthening the public responsibility of the adoption system. And once again, congratulations on holding of this consultative meeting on domestic settlement support for overseas Korean adoptees. Thank you.
예, 정익중
Thank you very much, President Chung. Now we are going to proceed with the commemorative group photo session. I would like to ask all the distinguished guests to come forward to the front stage. Thank you. Please come forward on the stage.
모두 앞쪽으로 나와주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Please come outside on the stage.
오늘 참석해 주신 분
I would like to thank everybody and please join us on the stage for group photo. Everybody who's in this meeting is invited on the stage for a group photo.
예, 모두 수고하셨습니다.
Thank you very much. Please, you can return to your seats.
이상으로 기념 촬영을 마쳤으니
Thank you. And we will have a coffee break until 2:40.
두 시 50분부터 발제를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 예, 그동안 휴식 시간을 가지도록 하겠습니다. 2시 50분부터 발제를 할 예정.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to begin the session. So if you're outside the hall, please proceed to the hall and take your seats. The staff members, please guide all the participants into the hall.
발제가 곧 시작되오니 모두
Ladies and gentlemen, the meeting will start soon. Please take your seats, and we would like to ask you all to silence your mobile phones. Now, we would like to invite Mr. An Jun-han, Director of National Center for the Rights of the Child, will introduce the agency's Family Search Program. Please come forward.
네.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm Director An Jun-han from National Center for the Rights of the Child. It's a pleasure. Nice to meet you all. I'm very honored to be a part of this meaningful policy consultation meeting. And I'm the first speaker, and I'm very nervous, I have to admit. I'm given 10 minutes for my presentation, and I feel obliged to do my best to use these 10 minutes as wisely as possible. And I might get really nervous, and my voice might tremble a little bit, so I would like to ask for your understanding. Let me introduce you to the Family Search Program. Our adoption information disclosure services are various types, but this family search program is one of them. But let me introduce you to NCRC first. Based on Article 10 of Child Welfare Act, we carry out the various policies for children's welfare, and we also assess the result of these projects. And please refer to the mission and vision of our center. We were established in 2019. And in 2019, we were launched as an integrated organization of various previous organizations. And in 2020, the completion of the related organization into NCRC was completed. This is Adoption Information Division, and as of July this year, the Special Act on Domestic Adoption and Act on International Adoption will go into effect, and our organization has been reinforced. We have the Adoption Support Department and Adoption Support Department. We have 3 different types of organizations. And as for the administration support system, it is responsible for developing the adoption manual, making the preparation for the legislation adoption, and information disclosure system is responsible for dealing with the questions related to integration of the system, helping with the finding adoptive alternative families, and family type protection support department provides various educational and promotional project support. Out of the 3 departments, we are the second. So we are Adoption Information Disclosure Support Department, and let me talk about our organization in detail. There are two laws related to adoption that will go into effect on the 18th of July. As for request for the disclosure of adoption information, there has been some changes. The information disclosure request has now been integrated under NCRC, and the information will be preserved by the NCRC. This is the information that can be made available upon request as long as the record exists. Regardless of the consent of the birth parent, the adoptees will be able to find out the age of the birth parent, adoption date, cause of adoption, and the residence place of the birth parents. And as for the information that requires consent, would be the name of the birth parents, the birth date, address, contact information of the birth parent. As for requesting the information on adoption, you can go to our homepage and fill out the request form, and the person in charge will search for the information and provide the relevant information. And then if the birth parent information is requested, then there will be a process of identifying the residence place of the birth parents, and the birth parents will be asked if they consent to sharing the information, and if the consent is given, DNA test will be carried out. However, if the location of the birth parent is not identifiable, there will be some alternative support for alternative ways of family search. More than 1,800 people have requested for adoption information last year. And DNA registration for adoptees with no known family ties. If there is no record of the birth parents, or if the birth parents' information is inaccurate, or the location of the residence of the parent is not identifiable, then DNA will be registered. As for the procedure, the adoptee should fill in a request form, and then NCRC will issue a adoption information verification form, and adoptees will make an appointment with the embassy and collect the gene, DNA, and the embassy will send the DNA information to Korea, registered at the National Police Agency of Korea. And the search can be possible upon the birth parents as well as the siblings. And if the siblings or family members have pre-registered their DNA, and if DNA is matched, then family reunification can be achieved. Up until now, we have supported 401 cases. DNA collection, 336 DNA has been collected so far. Let me look at the alternative family search procedure. If no information about birth parent was available, or the information was not accurate, then there could be alternative ways of searching for family. For this alternative family search, there will be a bulletin board through which the adoptees can share their information, or they can also promote them through the National Health Insurance bill invoice. And on our homepage, you can sign up for alternative family search. And you can also make a short video of your story. You can also sign up for more than one way of alternative family search. You need to also register your information, stories, and picture. Up until now, 100 stories have been registered so far. Health insurance invoice bill also can display the stories of our adoptees. And about 40 cases have been registered so far. This is the procedural map of the process that I have just mentioned. You can request for information disclosure, and then NCRC will disclose the adoption-related information. And if you're also looking for birth parents information, and if the information is available, then we will trace them to their location of residence and ask for their consent on sharing the information. If the consent is given, DNA test will be carried out, and if the DNA matches, the family will be reunited. However, if the birth parents' information is not available in the record, there could be alternative family search, and if a candidate is identified, then DNA test will be carried out. And for adoptees with no known family ties, DNA test will be carried out, and if the DNA is matched, we'll go through the relevant procedure for family reunification. This is Yonhap News site, and on this site, you can post your adoption stories. Once you go to Yonhap News Agency homepage, in the middle and upper right hand, there is a banner called Family Search for Adoptees. And if you click this, you will see all the stories that have been registered on the site so far. This is the National Health Insurance bill, and on the bill, there will be a printout of the adoptees looking for their families. So far, I've talked about the family search program that our department is taking care of. There's also post-adoption services that our department provides. If there is another chance in the future, I would love to talk about the service as well. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Director An. Next, we will move on to the next presentation by Section Chief Kim Chae-young of Overseas Korean Business Network Division. She will give us an overview of dedicated overseas adoptee service desks and case studies.
예, 안녕하십니까.
Hello, everyone. I am Section Chief Kim Chae-young of Overseas Korean Business Network Division. The title of my presentation, please refer to page 15 of the booklet that you have received. 2023, ever since dedicated service desk for Korean adoptees at the Overseas Korean Agency was established, we are communicating with the overseas Korean adoptees. And we do have with us Deputy Director Kim Sung-hwan and also Director Lee and also Pyun. They are actively taking part in so that we can gather the views from the overseas Korean adoptees, try to find the best way to help you. And also for 2 times, we had a meeting in Seoul for overseas Korean adoptees. And also we are providing support for the overseas Korean adoptees. Under the leadership of Commissioner Lee Sang-deok in March this year, we have provided a special dedicated service for Korean adoptees at the Overseas Korean Agency so that overseas Korean adoptees can make most of that. And we provided procedures so that the adoptees can search for their birth parents. And we gathered the DNA, all the necessary procedures. We have reviewed and studied that. And today we are joined by NCRC, OCA, GOAL, and also OCA's Service Support Center. Are we doing a good job? If you agree, please give a warm round of applause. We are taking a baby step, but our ultimate goal is providing the best services to the overseas Korean adoptees. So let me begin the introduction of the dedicated service desk. The dedicated service desk locates within the service center, and exclusively the dedicated service desk provides service to the adoptees. Of course, there is a saying in Korea that just one step cannot fulfill everything, but we believe that adoptees are they deserve to get full service. So apostille or certification, consular authentications, and notifications and renunciations of the overseas immigrations, permanent return to Korea, and issuance of the certified copy of the overseas Koreans, getting jobs and national pensions, healthcare, medical bills, all of this, and driver license, all kinds of services that the overseas Korean adoptees might need. And I just want to emphasize that overseas Korean adoptees can use our service if you need any needs. And as Commissioner Lee mentioned, in the future, the range and the activities and service that we provide will be expanded in depth and width. So from March 31st to April 24th, for about a month, let me share with you what kind of civil complaints were received. Total of 119 civil complaints were received at the dedicated service desk. Among them, the majority were related to family search assistance, and some involved requests for access to the adoption records and also for additional informations, and also the variety of issues such as information disclosure requests and DNA registration. So there were a lot of requests. We're trying to do our roles to give answers. And the process of that, just knowing that there is a dedicated service desk, they are very, very happy. And also, they thought that there was no way of finding their family or doing the things that they need, but they're just happy that we have this dedicated service desk. As I mentioned, NCRC provides family search assistance, but other than that, we try to understand what kind of other civil complaints there are. The majority are visa, especially the most notable trend was the increase in the inquiries regarding overseas Korean visas, nationality issues such as the permissibility of the dual citizenship for children. So it's been only a month ever since the dedicated service desk was opened, but we realized that there are a lot of inquiries coming from the overseas Korean adoptees. What we are concerned about is, as I mentioned before, the dedicated service desk cannot resolve the issues or challenges faced by the Korean adoptees. But let me be frank with you, we don't have a full competency. We need more budget, we need more manpower. We're doing our utmost efforts. So please bear with us, be a little bit more patient so that we can do our roles. If you look at page 16, you can look at the feedbacks or ideas that we got from the complaints that we got from the Korean adoptees. Especially, there were some requests from the Korean adoptees that they want us to mobilize the YouTube channel. So we are reviewing that. In order to search their family, we can use that, but there's one channel operated by National Center for the Rights of the Child, and if we also open our own channel, it could be overlapping. So we are discussing with the related agencies. So In the future, what we plan to do is we have a couple of projects, but we plan to launch the family search clip contents via YouTube or any other program. So give us feedbacks, then we can do some family search channel. This year, we will do a survey on the status of the overseas Korean adoptees residing in Korea. So demographic characteristic or of the adoptees or the analysis of the residency types and purpose, and also what kind of help they require. We would like to know about that. So we'll conduct survey and then the result will be reflected back to our policies. So this survey of the public needs is completed, we'll combine that with other feedbacks, and then we can provide a better service. Last but not least, in November 2025, the office OCA will host the Global Korean Adoptees Conference in Seoul, especially those who visit Korea for the first time. We will invite them. This is a special program, and we will try to invite adoptees from around the world to provide opportunity for their first visit to their country of origin. I'm sure that people are asking. Our planned date is in November, and please, I just want to let you know that we will soon disclose or announce the date. I know that we have many adoptees taking part today. I promise you that, as Commissioner Lee mentioned, we will work closely with Ministry of Health and Welfare, Office of Overseas Koreans, Ministry of Justice, and NCRC, so that we can improve the rights of adoptees and also make sure to consolidate the policies so that we can provide assistance to the overseas Korean adoptees. Thank you very much. Next, let me invite Team Leader Do Gyuri from Seodaemun District Office, who will talk about support for domestic settlement of the multicultural families by local governments.
안녕하세요.
Good afternoon. I'm Do Gyuri from Seodaemun District Office Family Center. When I was first asked to make this settlement, well, it was described as if this policy consultation meeting was a rather small one. But now I'm here, and it actually turns out to be a very big policy consultation meeting. And I believe that Goal and OCA should have worked very hard to prepare such a large meeting. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to make the presentation. And I think this is the best, one of the best conferences in terms of being punctual. So I will try to be as punctual myself as well. Let me introduce you to the Family Center at Seodaemun District Office and how we are supporting the foreigners living in Korea. We are a family center located in Seodaemun District. Until 2022, we were called a multicultural family support center, but since then, we were renamed into Family Center to support multiple types of families. And the support services that I'm describing now will be described in detail under the Ministry of Gender Equality. This is our center. We have been established in 2006. Ihwa Academy is the operating organization, and we stay close to the local community and try to support various types of families. These are projects that we are involved in based on life cycle. We provide customized family services based on their cycle of evolution. We also support single-person family and foreign families as well. And we also support people before the families enter crisis situation by providing family support and child care services as well. I don't think I have time to go into each and every one of these projects. So this is a overall description of our projects. We provide consulting services to all the people who visit our center to identify what kind of support they need and what kind of challenges they are going through. So we manage at family unit, we provide our own services or we match them with external resources. And also follow up on whether the external services are being provided successfully. And this process is repeated over and over. And after the delivery of services, we follow up and monitor the families 3 months, 6 months into the post-counseling phase. Well, I think I've been talking too fast. And we also offer Korean language training. We have the basic class and advanced class. In basic class, we provide 5 levels of academic courses. The most basic would be face-to-face, in-person class. And if the class has more than 15 students, we split into 2 classes. So we accommodate up to 15 students per class, and many foreigners or marriage migrants participate in this class, and only the certified teachers will be the teachers of Korean language. And after going through the basic language, they will move on to advanced Korean class. So we have multiple levels of Korean language education. And as for the project, we translated this booklet into multiple languages. You can also scan the QR code and apply directly on Google. Of course, not every applicant will be participating in class right away. We'll go through initial counseling to identify the level of Korean skills and also see whether they can complete the course. After 1 year of studying, there will be a completion ceremony. And this is a great motivation factor. After participating in the completion ceremony, the students will feel proud of themselves. And this is one of the photos from our completion celebration. And we also offer vocational training program for marriage immigrants so that they can be economically active. Last year, we offered house chore experts and shop floor managers. And when they have job interview, we also train them on how to dress up, how to participate in the job interviews. So we offer vocational training programs to the point that we match them with actual jobs. Unlike last year, this year we are opening Korean chef, Korean cook programs, but you need to be able to be fluent in Korean to participate in Korean cooking class. And then, since you have to be fluent, we did not translate this booklet into Korean. You have to be able to write, communicate in Korean to participate in Korean cooking class. And there will be 64 classes for Korean cooking class. And after participating in the cooking class, you have to actually be tested in cooking test, and also we will offer interview coaching to be matched with actual jobs. And for families, if the family is going through some conflict or difficult mental issues, we carry out family counseling services. And since we used to be multicultural family centers, there are many translators, so you can also do counseling in English, Vietnamese, or many other languages. And as for your children, we provide them with school-related mentoring and classwork teaching. And we can also help you experience the Korean culture. We have culture experience programs, and we can also group you with other families who are going through similar problems. And in the case of crisis families who have gone through a crisis situation, we pay special attention. We sometimes dispatch a psychological counselor to the family, and we try to help them so that they can back on their feet. Especially single-person family, we even take them to hospitals if they cannot go to the hospital themselves. So I have listed the number of projects that we are providing. Well, you might not understand clearly exactly how we are supporting, but up until now, if in the remarried couples, if the wife wants to bring their own biological children from their homeland, they have to be adopted in Korea. And if they cannot speak Korean, and then if your spouse is also a multi-foreigner, then because of privacy information protection, I'm not sharing any real information. But in this case, the adopted Korean man is married, Korean woman is married to a marriage immigrant husband, and they have a child. And for resettlement and for child care, they requested this type of services. And for a family to successfully settle down in an area, well, they need multiple services that cannot be provided by only one agency. So as for adoptees, they can receive a lot of support from NCRC and GOAL. Family Center also provides support for marriage immigrants and for the whole family. As for visa transition or Korean language training or vocational training, this marriage immigrant got a job interview and is waiting for the results. If the marriage immigrants can get a job, they will be more financially stable. These two spouses come from different cultures. They have communication problems and thus a marital conflict, but we also arranged family counseling services and supported them in how to raise their child and how Koreans raise their children. So most of our marriage immigrants come from other Asian countries like Thailand, Vietnam, China. But in the case of adoptees, they usually come from North America or Europe. So they might need different types of language support. But using the expertise we built in supporting multicultural families, we think we can expand the services to overseas adoptees so that they can successfully resettle in Korean society. Adoptees can have Korean citizenship, or since at least they have lived overseas for a long time, so they might not be culturally familiar with Korea. So we are thinking about how we can support them most effectively. Okay, I believe there will be a Q&A later on, so I'm not sure whether I have been punctual, but thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. Next, we would like to invite overseas adoptee, Ms. Kim Liver, to talk about introduction of adoptee education and communication centers.
Hello, my name is Kim Oliver Sperling. I'm a German adoptee and I've been living here in Korea for about 3 years now. But I've been active in the adoptee community for around about 20 years. I would like to thank the Overseas Korean Agency and GOL for inviting me here today to speak kind of on behalf of our community. So, the topic of this panel today is settlement of Korean adoptees here in Korea. And what I will talk about is a project that might help a lot of us settle here successfully. So, most adoptees that come to Korea have high expectations. They are coming back to the country they were born to, but they hardly know. And we all share a deep affection to this country that we probably cannot really express. But once we arrive, it's kind of like a shock because we realize that we don't know where exactly we belong to. We have to go through many difficult phases and we have to navigate through a very complex and always changing society. Post-adoption services that have been existing so far have evolved over the years, and the possibilities for us are various. But what we are actually lacking is something that we feel close to, a space, a physical space that we feel like is made for the adoptee community that returns. We are 200,000 roundabout, and out of this big group, every year, hundreds of us return to Korea for a holiday or to settle. And we don't really know where we should go. For many years, we had a space where a lot of us felt close to. The Korea Guest House offered something that was beyond that because we knew that we could always kind of go there. It was a place to meet other adoptees. But since that place has closed, there's been a gap in that regard. We have other post-adoption services like Go, Incas, With Us, Nest. And while they all do an important job, it's still not the same. You have to make an appointment. They offer certain services, but what we need is something more stable, something that is there all the time. So what I'm going to propose is the establishment of an adoptee community center here in Korea, a physical space that could serve as a hub for connecting us with the Korean society, where you have an exchange, where we are able to learn about Korea, but also give back. Many times, adoptees in Korea are overwhelmed by the amount of help the Korean society, Korean people are willing to give us. But it also makes us feel weak in a way that we sometimes have the experience to be treated like a child. But we are not. We are all adults. And I guess what we do need is some kind of support that enables us to be a little bit more self-dependent, a little bit more autonomous. So we can find our own way here in the society. I do believe that we have a lot of experiences made abroad that we can share with the Koreans, with this country. I mean, if we look at it, among all the adoptees that return to Korea and decide to live here, a big portion of us is working as English teachers. But you know, frankly speaking, any person with a British or American or Australian passport and a university degree can do that. I'm pretty sure that the Korean society can benefit way more from returning adoptees that find a meaningful place here where they can just contribute to this society and share their experiences, share their unique abilities. So far, the support for us, especially when it comes to language, has been a little bit up and down. There were language courses, there were scholarships, but right now we are lacking the availability of offline courses specifically for adoptees. And that's mainly due to a lack of space. With such a community center, we could have a space to offer that. We could have a space to offer education about Korean culture, about how to find a job, how to behave in certain situations. It could be a space where we find all the information that is necessary for leading an independent life here. I also think that besides helping the ones that are already here, it could also be a good opportunity to teach the adoptees abroad to make a conscious decision about moving to Korea. I think it's always better to know what to expect before you decide to move across the globe. Therefore, this project could be so much. I can see it like an open vessel where we have certain things that are included, but we're also able to just add what we need. The adopted community is aging, as is Korea. And with an aging community, there come different needs. We are not, most of us are not like in our 20s anymore. We have a growing group of people in their 60s and older coming to Korea, thinking about retiring here. And this means also new challenges. These people are probably not looking for a job, but for a way to find their peace here. This community center is also a place where I feel like we could all relate to, where I feel like it's a safe space for us that sometimes we just need someone to talk to. Being in Korea as an adoptee can be a very lonely experience. It's like you're far away from the people you know, you're part of some kind of an expert community, and everybody who's been abroad knows that once you connect with overseas people, like with the experts, people come and go. Maintaining long-lasting friendships and relationships is incredibly difficult, and it's a constant goodbye. Having a place where you feel like you feel bad and you just want to talk to someone, a familiar face that knows and understands your situation, could be provided in such a community center. There's a growing interest in adoption also from Koreans, and I think this kind of community center could also serve as a place for them, for Koreans that want to know more about adoption, to go and educate themselves. It could be some kind of like a library, an archive, where we gather information about the history of adoption, about adoptees' life, about what it is like. Some place for birth families that have difficulties communicating with their reconnected children, maybe. A place where adoptees had maybe the chance to teach others, Koreans, and give something back to the society. I believe that if we are able to establish such a center, we will be on a good way to make the next step in establishing something that will have a lasting impact, that will be like something sustainable where all parties involved will benefit from. We've had some major milestones in the past decades. It probably started with the F4 visa, which granted us easy access to a residency here where we could walk. Now we have the availability of dual citizenship for many of us. And all these things are great, but when it comes to permanent settlement, a lot of us face the problem that they stay here for a couple of years, but they never completely arrive. Most adoptees leave after a couple of years when they feel like they want to start a family. Why is it like that? I mean, in a country that's facing a major problem when it comes to a horrendously low birth rate, this is a bad sign. And I feel like making it easier for adoptees to settle here and helping them in any way they might need to start a family here could be a very good way for us to go into the future together. Thank you very much.
예, 김 올로모님
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation on Adoptee Education and Community Center. We'll now have a Q&A session for 20 minutes, and we have 3 seats in the front. I would like to ask you to move to the available seats in the front rows. So Senior Chief Kim, Director An, Mr. Kim Oliver, please come up to the seat in the front.
예, 거기 앉아.
Yes. Now we've had 4 presentations. If you have any question, please raise your hand.
편하게 질문해 주셔도 좋으니까.
Feel free to ask any questions.
예, 질문 부탁.
Yes, please.
Thank you for everyone who spoke out and clarified, presented your information. My question is specifically to NCRC regarding the birth search. As many of us adoptees know, all of our files are being transitioned to your offices come July 19th. I am wondering when you will disclose what the process will be for us to access that information. Whether you have a process to do an audit to ensure that all the files in their complete form are transitioned over to you. Thank you.
예, 저희 가족 찾기.
Yes. It was a question about family search program. So Director An, would you like to answer that question? Yes, I will speak in Korean. Thank you very much for the question. As of July 19th, based on law, the information will be managed by NCRC. As for the adoption-related record, actually the amount of record is huge, and now we are making preparation for the transition of the files. It's not like it's going to be completed in one single day. And we are talking to adoption-related agencies. There will be 2 to 3 months of transition period in which the data will be transferred to our center. The adoption agencies will first transfer their record to our center, and the child protection centers data and some data that local governments have, all of them will sequentially be transferred to our center. And we also need to scan the data. We'll first look at the status of the data, sterilize them if necessary, and make preparation for permanent preservation of the data. And you can request information disclosure to our center as you have already done, and we'll search the scanned file and provide the information to you. I hope that has answered your question.
예, 안철환 부장님 답변 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much, Director An. And any other question, please raise your hand if you have a question.
예, 뒤쪽에 계시.
Yes, in the back of the room.
So I have a question. Kim Sperling outlined a really great idea of having a community center for adoptees. I'd like to know from NEST and not NEST, NCRC and OKA and the adoption agencies if they've thought about how they can also be a part to help make that a successful program so that adoptees who come to Korea do feel fully welcomed and do actually want to stay and participate in the community. Thank you.
예, 김올리고님 답변 부탁드리겠습니다.
Kim Oliver, would you like to answer?
I'm asking the other organizations. The other organizations. NCRC, OKA.
네. 또 뵙습니다.
Thank you. So for community centers, I know this is a center that adoptees really need. It seems like the community centers would be most effective if they're located in multiple places around the country. So at first, we have to decide which location needs these centers the most. We need a long-term plan. And with the Ministry of Health and Welfare, we are already carrying out a lot of related projects, like post-adoption services for our adoptees. And using the budget for this project, some of the local organizations, multiple local organizations that are providing similar services as community services. They are not delivered under the organization of community centers, but they are decentralized across multiple agencies. Of course, if we can ultimately build those community centers, that would be most desirable. But first, we have to identify the demand and then decide which location could best benefit from community centers. So we need a long-term strategy.
드립니다. 김올리고님도 답변.
So Mr. Kim Oliver, would you like to answer the question as well?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I think if I understand your question right, you are asking like how a community center would affect the work of the other post-adoption service providers like Nest and the other.
I'm asking how the other companies can support the idea
What?
of service center.
Okay, well, the way I envision this is more like an additional resource. Like, I don't think that an adoptee community center would replace the work that all these organizations are doing. I guess it's more like you go to the adoptee community center because they know all the other people and all the other organizations involved, so they can just be directed there. And I mean, the work they do changes always slightly, so it's hard to tell right now, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. No, that's why I was asking, like, how they see themselves fitting in if we had an actual support community center, because I would assume that part of the support community center is then saying, oh, these services can be provided by this organization and you can connect with them here. And so there would have to be like a two-way bridge, right? Like we would need to know from those other organizations who would we talk to about those services. So you mentioned, you know, like someone who's feeling lonely going in to be able to talk to a friendly face, but sometimes that requires, what's the word? Certification, thank you. And so that might be something that we say, okay, we can do that to a certain extent among ourselves. We all know what trauma dumping is, and then here's a way to move past that if you want to move past that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just like I think it's more like a space where you just go and you feel like you want to meet someone, like talk to someone, like just, and not for like necessarily a place where you get all the answers, but people can direct you.
Yeah. So in that sense of getting people who can direct you, that's where my question was to the other organizations. Do they see themselves as part of something like a support center?
저기 마이크 이쪽으로 좀.
Yes, please bring the microphone here. I'm Kim Chae-young, Section Chief, and Overseas Korean Agency. If you refer to page 31 in the booklet, there is a nice building picture. In order to build this building, it would take a long time. It's a wonderful building, but it would take time to build it. And including goal, and there are some adoptees related organizations or the community of adoptees, and they can also offer community programs, like Goal offers community programs, and other adoption agency or religious organizations also offer support for adoptees. And also some local governments have their own programs to support adoptees, and they're also developing legislation for adoptees. And we will study that in depth. The most important thing is securing the financial resources to fund these programs, and we are working on funding. We are persuading the Korean government that adoptees deserve the equal amount of support as any other Korean overseas compatriots, including education, language training. So we are taking step-by-step approach, and we are doing our best to secure financial resources. We look forward to your support for that matter as well. Thank you very much. And because of time, we will be able to accommodate only one question. Yes?
I'm Mide Ri. I was adopted to the United States. I live in Germany now. I have a question about access and a few suggestions. This is a conference or a symposium about policy about us. But this book is not translated into a language that is accessible for most of us. So as you know, many of us struggle with the language. I think we really try to meet you all halfway in our learning, but how do you expect us to be a collaborative partner with you when we don't even know what you're talking about? It's actually offensive to have policy be created where we don't get a chance to talk to you about that as equal partners. And this is another thing I want to just say with what Kim Sperling said. Stop treating us like children. We can be your partners, but you have to see us as equals. Thank you.
예, 먼저 자료
Yes. I would like to make sure that we don't repeat the same mistake in the future. I'm very sorry, sincere apologies.
그러면
Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Now we are going to have break until 4 o'clock.
PPT요?
테스트 하나 둘 셋. 테스트. 테스트.
눌렀다가 멈출 거예요.
그냥 원고대로 하세요. 이 주제를 해달라고 요청 받으신 거잖아요. 그렇죠? 정확하게 그래놓고 나중에 또 트럼프 얘기하지 말라고. 이 두 기관이 하는데 정확하게 뭘 주제로 하는지가 약간 엇갈린 것 같아요. 준비하는 사람과 또 이제 위로 올라가면서 뭐 좀 변수들이 생긴 것 같아요. 근데 일단 정확하게 어디가 포커스인지 모르는 것 같고 너무 지금 이 액세션도 모르고 청중들이 국내 정착을 희망하는 분이 몇 분이나 계실지 모르겠어요. 그냥 입장 공포 부리고 오는 거고 정말 체험하러 한국 들어온 분들도 지금 섞여 있는 것 같은데 지금 특히 김양훈 교수님하고 축구도 하는데 어떻게 지금
16시부터 토론 시간을 가질 예정이오니
We're going to begin the panel discussion from 4 p.m. If you're still outside the hall, please proceed to the hall and take your seats.
토론이 곧 시작되오니
We'll soon begin the panel discussion. Please be seated. We'd really appreciate if you could please switch off your mobile phone or switch to the vibration mode.
토론을 시작하기 전에
Before we begin the panel discussion, let me introduce the panelists. First of all, we have with us Professor Kim Yeon-soo from Baeksuk University. She will work as a moderator. Let me introduce three panelists. First of all, we have with us legislative investigator Jung Min-jung from the National Assembly of Republic of Korea. And next, Professor Kim Hyang-eun from Department of Social Welfare, Kosin University. We have with us Ms. Amanda Jo from Overseas Adoptee. Now I will hand over the microphone to Professor Kim Yeon-soo of Baeksuk University. Please proceed. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. It is my great honor and privilege to work as a moderator today. Under the title of Strategy for Supporting Domestic Resettlement of Overseas Adoptees, let's begin our panel discussion. Well, it's supposed to be the panel discussion, but the panelists have also prepared a short presentation. So they will not only make a very short presentation, but also we are going to be engaged in panel discussion. The topics, the themes that they will introduce, let me briefly mention that, and then we'll proceed. First speaker is legislative investigator Jung Min-jung from the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea. She will be discussing about the citizenships in the United States, and also she'll talk about the Korean adoptees. Legislative investigator graduated from Seoul National University, major law, and went to Berkeley University, received a master's degree. And at Berkeley Law School, she received PhD degree. So she is a true sense of a legal expert. Let me introduce the second speaker. Professor Kim Hyang-eun will talk about the domestic settlement support for overseas Korean adoptees. What are the challenges and what could be the solution? Professor Kim Hyang-eun graduated from Korea University and received master degree and PhD degrees in children's welfare. Currently, she's working as a professor, Department of Social Welfare in Kosin University. She works closely as the advisors and commissioners of the government relevant agencies, especially giving advices to overseas Korean agencies and other government agencies. Let me introduce Dr. Amanda Cho. Dr. Amanda Cho will talk about the actual policies, needs, and also what can be done for the overseas Korean adoptees. Representing the overseas Korean adoptees, she will talk about the experiences and the challenges. Dr. Amanda Cho majored education at University of Tulsa. She received a master's degree and University of North Texas. She received PhD degree, and currently University of Tennessee is a place where she is working as an adjunct professor. So let's begin the panel discussion in full-fledged manner. I'll give you 15 minutes to each speaker, and after 3 speakers complete their presentation, we will open the floor to have the Q&A session. So let's invite legislative investigator Jung Min-jung.
Good afternoon. I'm from National Assembly of Korea. I'm a legislative investigator. And the International Act on International Adoption will go into effect in July, and various government ministries, organizations, including NCRC, OCA, GOL, are making various preparation for the implementation of the law. And after hearing those presentations, I began to wonder whether my presentation is appropriate in this meeting, because I could be slightly off track here. I have prepared a presentation about Korean adoptees who have not received U.S. citizenship in the U.S. The history of international adoption began with adoption of war orphans, and then there is more international adoptions than domestic adoption in Korea. Most of the adoptions is into the United States. And those Korean adoptees who have not acquired U.S. citizenship there are large in number, and about 20,000 adoptees are estimated to be without U.S. citizenship. Of course, there's the International Act on International Adoption, and it provides diplomatic and legislative support. And we are making preparation to deal with this issue now. And I also wrote down about international norms on international adoption. International adoption is about when a child leaves a country, home country, looking for their parents overseas, which could be quite a high risk factor, and that is why international convention has created Hague Convention and international adoption. And kidnapping, abduction, trafficking of child must be prevented, and that is why this convention was written. And in the convention, it talks about the fact that Korean adoption policies have some problems. We have to look at the international standards to review Korean adoption practices. Hague Convention International Adoption. About 160 countries have signed this convention, and this convention scope includes when a child moves a place of residency, establishing a permanent child-parent legal relationship, and the principle of subsidiarity is applied here. First, the original family will try to take care of the child or the relatives. And the international adoption is seen as the last resort. And within the family or the society, home community, the child will try to stay there. But if that is not possible, the geographically closest areas will be considered. And at least countries that use the similar language or have similar culture or geographic proximity would be the next country to be considered for adoption. Then the adoption to the United States in various aspects is against the principles of Hague Convention on International Adoption. And Hague Convention also states that the accredited organization for adoption to prevent abduction or the trafficking of children. There are various requirements for accreditation, and it also talks about the procedure of international adoption and the approval and effect of adoption. As for the requirements or effects, then the certificate of compliance with the convention's obligation will be issued for automatic approval of adoption in other countries. And when you look at the general ordinances, it makes sure that for compensation to the birth parents for going ahead with the adoption in order to prevent any financial gain on the part of the birth parents, there is a related clause. And when we look at the legislative trends around the world, the signatory countries of Hague Convention will be given H visa, but non-signatory countries will be given IR3 or IR4 visas to the adoptees. Korean adoptees, when they are deported to Korea, they are deported because Korea is not a signatory member of Hague Convention. So the Korean adoptees will enter the United States with IR visa, and the state court will go through the court proceedings to establish the legal family relationship. And if that process not been carried out, then the adoptee will not get the citizenship. And when the adoptee is engaged in a crime or when they sign up for voting rights, they will realize that they are not legal U.S. citizens, and that could be a cause for problems. Korean adoptees in order to become American family member, they went to the United States. So they need legal relief, and many people in the U.S. believe so. And in 2002, Adoptee Citizen Act has been legislated, and a lot of adoptees have been relieved thanks to this act. A judge in the United States said that it is a tragedy for an adoptee to be deported. A young child, a baby born to a mother on American soil, no matter how heinous his crime, deportation is to him akin to exile, a punishment so horrific that any civilized person would universally agree it should be abolished. Such cruel and barbaric treatment would be a national disgrace, according to a U.S. judge. Because of this belief, in 2000, ACA, Adopted Citizen Act, was passed. But this is applicable to only adoptees who were born after 1983. So this law had to be enhanced so that the Korean adoptees born before 1983 can also be relieved. And that led to the creation another act, Adoptee Citizen Act. In 2024 June, the Adoptee Citizen Act was legislated. These two acts are very similar in content, but they have not been fully legislated. But with the act, about 20,000 Korean adoptees will not be fully relieved. But if the laws are passed, of course, some of them will seek relief. However, the U.S. Congress still hasn't ratified this act, so there is a lot of things that Korean government should do. Adoptees without U.S. citizens, we need to find out what kind of situation they are and provide legislative support and judicial support. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is continuously investigating what is happening with those adoptees without citizenship. But it's difficult to find out where they live, and it's difficult to get the U.S. government support in this matter. Many adoptees are not willing to share their identification information, fearing that they might be deported. So there's a lot of difficulties in gathering information about these adoptees. And thanks to the Act on International Adoption, the adoptees can come to Korea and go through language training. And in the previous session, the NCRC and OKA is making preparation for various programs. In the U.S. Congress, I hope they can ratify the Adoptee Citizen Act and pass it once and for all. Korean adoptees without U.S. citizenship is a matter of universal human rights, not just an adoption issue. And this is also related to the U.S. citizens' rights to form family relations, to be united with families. We need to emphasize that part of this act to persuade the U.S. Congress. We have already legislated the Act on International Adoption. It is about to go into effect. And the Hague Convention on International Adoption is something that we really need to ratify. This Hague Convention's goal is to protect the original family, and international adoption should be seen as a means of last resort. The Korean government should make a lot of preparation about this aspect of Hague Convention. So conclusion, those Korean adoptees who have not acquired U.S. citizenship under the negligence of the two governments, they entered the United States, lived with American parents all their lives. But suddenly, they are classified as an undocumented immigrant in the United States. Humanly speaking, this is very unhumanistic and humiliating treatment of the adoptees. And in 2021 and in June of 2024, the Adoptee Citizen Act has been proposed. I hope that this leads to, but it is in a deadlock in the U.S. Congress. I hope the next U.S. Congress session can pass this act. And the Korean government should provide all the judicial and legislative support so that Korean adoptees can live as legal citizens in the U.S. And if they're deported, we need to actively seek various programs so that they can settle down in Korea. Thank you very much for your attention.
네, 감사드립니다.
Thank you. Once again, legislative investigator Jung Min-jung talked about the Korean adoptees who couldn't acquire American citizenship, what kind of challenges they might face. Thank you for your explanations. What kind of support should we give to them? Jung Min-jung also talked about the ideas and also the countermeasures that the Korean adoptees can have. The importance of joining the Hague Convention, especially protecting the human rights, and also it is extremely important to protect the rights of the Korean adoptees, supporting them so that they can acquire the citizenship. It was really well explained. And also the domestic settlement, what kind of policies, what kind of supports they really need. It was also mentioned. Thank you very much, Dr. Jung. Next, let me invite Professor Kim Hyang-eun, who will talk about domestic settlement and what kind of challenges they are faced with.
안녕하세요.
Good afternoon. Today, I'll talk about how to help the adoptees successfully resettle in Korea. It's a great pleasure to be with the people, like-minded people. I hope my presentation, one of the requirements to be a very excellent presentation is to make it brief. So I will try to cover as much as possible within my limited time. Last night, well, actually, I'm a professor at university and I have so many classes on Monday. So I had 6 hours of class yesterday. And even though I have the script for discussion, I've thought about how to make it interesting to my audience. So I have developed PowerPoint slides overnight.
광고로 밤을 샜고요. 또
So I have burned midnight oil for 2 nights, one night for developing the script and another night for developing the PowerPoint slides. So I will talk about the policy task for successfully supporting the Korean adoptees in Korea. Let's talk about the need. Many people have said today, have also mentioned that OKA will actively expand the definition of overseas Koreans. And for adopted compatriots, everybody agrees that we need to expand our support for adopted compatriots. And one of the reasons we are paying special attention to adoptees is because of increase in the number of adoptees. And adoptees have their unique desires and needs, which are quite diverse. So we need to have multiple channels for supporting the overseas adoptees. Of course, one single agency cannot take care of everything. There is a need for government-wide efforts and collaboration across various adoption-related agencies, as well as the adoptees themselves and the members of local communities, local governments, central governments. So multiple stakeholders need to work together to support overseas adoptees. Next. Second, we all agree on the need for supporting overseas adoptees. And one thing that we should remember here is in the previous page was about why, and this page is about for whom. We need to have a clear and in-depth understanding of who we should support. Without that kind of understanding, the programs would not be successful. So we need to clearly understand who we need to support and also understand the unique situation of adoptees. Adoptees have more multiple layer or complicated situations separated from the birth family, the self-identity issues, confusion, and some of them might suffer from various issues that could have a great influence on their lives. And many overseas adoptees who are here are not just adoptees, but they are adopted overseas, which place them in a unique situation. They might have had various diverse experience overseas. Some of them were welcomed, immediately integrated as members of the overseas community. One of my closest friends lived overseas for 40, 50 years, and she still hears, "Where are you from?" all the time. She thinks of herself as a Norwegian, but because of her appearance, she always is asked, "Where are you from?" And then she says, "I'm a Norwegian," and then they ask, "Where are you really from?" You know, you never ask that kind of question to a white person. So the being adopted in a foreign country puts them in a very unique situation. So some of them might want to search their family. They could have ambivalent feelings about their birth family. They miss them. They want to know about them. But they sometimes feel angry towards their birth family. So we need to try our best to understand this complex feelings they have towards birth families, and they want to experience Korean culture, or sometimes they want to return to Korea permanently and live as Korean citizens. So overseas adoptees have very diverse needs. And as migrants, the adoptees might go through their own struggle trying to settle down in Korea because many of them are not fluent in Korea. So there's the language barrier, social adaptation issues, And if they look like a Korean person, so if they act like a Westerner, they would often be berated for being not polite. Some people might not take it well, trying to adjust to the Korean way of living, Korean culture, and how they're going to get a job and become financially viable on their own. That could be a big struggle as well. And as for areas or types of support that can be offered for adoptees, there are several categories of support. I would like to divide them into 3 categories. Since these adoptees have gone through the common experience of adoption, there could be adoption-related support like referring to their adoption record, DNA test. Information-related services are essential services. And there could also be, some adoptees might suffer from trauma coming from adoption. This could be a lifetime struggle. To help them in the intake process, we need to understand exactly where they are to have an exact diagnosis, to come out with good prescription. So regarding the issue of adoption, there could be the first category of services, and second, when they come to Korea, they need to assimilate to the Korean society and culture. So that would constitute adaptation support, like being able to communicate in Korean language. Here I've just referred to the Korean language training, but there could be different levels of language skills. And where did they come from? Are they from the US or European countries? That would lead to different curriculum development and being assimilated to Korean social norms and being able to take care of day-to-day jobs like paying for various government bills or for water, housing, how to use banks, how to use buses and subways. They might feel like nothing, but if you have just come back to Korea from an overseas country, they need this kind of support to be integrated to the local community. Local governments or local communities and local residents need to extend a help, reach a hand out to these adoptees. And legislative investigator Jung gave us a detailed report about that. And there are some adoptees who need protection, or sometimes they're referred to adoptees in crisis. And NCRC has worked for a long time to develop a system to support them, like providing them the basic living cost, healthcare cost, housing cost, so that they can ultimately stand on their own feet. We can help them go through vocational training, find jobs, so that they can be economically independent. So fourth, what should be the direction for helping the overseas adoptees to successfully settle down in Korea? There are 5 categories. First, systematization, developing a legislative system, because over the past decade, the government, I know, has worked tirelessly in this area. So, of course, they have already made a lot of efforts to systemize this, but they need to upgrade this they need to upgrade their efforts for systemization, like legislative systemization or clarifying the roles and responsibilities between different organizations. That needs to be clarified. And developing system, of course, the structure and composition of the system should be improved, and access should also be systematized. And legislative investigator Chung said that there will be more detailed investigation into this matter. And one of the strategies for systematization would be to identify what are the needs and what are the issues. This requires precise diagnosis of the situation. Then we can develop the database, manage records based on actual research. Well, sustainability is the word of the day these days. We need to make our programs sustainable, and thus this requires a systematic approach. And I will start from the bottom. The left side says specialization, and that could lead to personalization and diversification. Specialization requires the quantitative and qualitative enhancement of people in charge. Over the past decade, the predecessor of NCRC has taken the first step to help the adoptees in crisis. It's been more than a decade ago now. There has been a lot of staff turnover since then. Of course, they were really dedicated to this purpose, but everybody is exhausted. They often leave the position because of exhaustion. So we really need to retain and develop the professional specialists and give them the appropriate level of support so that they will not be burnt out. So we need to develop the specialist who can take care of this task. And personalization is important because adoptees have very diverse needs, and we need to have personalized strategy for each adoptees, and that requires specialist skills and diversification. Instead of uniform and one-size-fits-all services, diverse services would be much better, and diverse services can be only developed by specialists. And at the bottom right chart shows integration, because one single organization cannot handle this huge task. So the Korean government okays A and goal, and Ministry of Health and Welfare, NCRC, and people from adoption agencies, and the adoptees themselves who actively voice their issues. Everybody needs to integrate their efforts. One more thing I would like to mention here is working with the local residents, like local community volunteers can help the adoptees coming from Denmark, for example. Let's say there is a Korean housewife who have lived in Denmark for a couple of years and knows the Danish society better than most other people. Of course, these people can be matched, but matching them requires a lot of time and efforts, but that could be an idea. That's the end of my presentation. But in closing, do I have time to make a last closing remarks? Over the past decade, I think we have rushed too hard. But we still have a long way to go. And the Korean overseas adoptees might feel that they are not given justice to. They are not listening to us. I know where they're coming from, but a decade, you could say it's a long time, but when it comes to making a genuine preparation, like developing the guidelines and principles, it could be seen as a short period of time. As an outsider who is not a government official, I think the Korean government officials have worked tirelessly in this journey. And of course, we are gathered here to improve the situation. Across the world, humans all pursue the philosophy of efficiency because we have to compete over limited resources, and we all want to maximize our outcome. And when we are trying to support adoptees, we cannot think about efficiency. You could say it's like pouring water to a bottomless jar, or it's a typical case of high cost and low efficiency. But a healthy community takes care of individuals in crisis or help, and they also help individuals. We cannot just dismiss them as a personal issue. It's an issue that the communities should participate in sharing the burden of resolving the issues. And a healthy community will be able to share such burdens and efforts. So today's policy consultation meeting is really meaningful. I hope this could be a starting step for successful resettlement of Korean adoptees in Korea. It's going to be a long journey, but I hope we have taken one more step today. Yes. I'm here just as a discussant, but I know the host of today's meeting have worked very hard to put together this meeting. I would like to thank everybody today.
네, 좋은 토론 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much. Of course, the needs of adoptees living in Korea are very diverse or multi-layered. Was it a voluntary decision or non-voluntary decision? So in supporting these adoptees, we really have to identify their needs. It's important to have an accurate assessment to come out with more systematic and specialized support. And for that, the government ministries, local central governments, as well as various civic organizations and welfare centers need to put their heads together in solidarity. Thank you very much, Professor Kim. Now we would like to hear from Dr. Cho.
Thank you. So I am a Korean adoptee from the United States, and I'm here to talk about policy needs for overseas adoptees. I think the reason why I was invited here is because I am affiliated with several adoptee-led organizations in the United States, and also ICA, the International Korean Adoptee Association. And I also work for an adoptee-led organization. But today I am here representing myself just as an individual adoptee. I'm not speaking for all adoptees out there. So like the experiences and the perspective that I share is just from my experience from what I've been through as an adoptee and from also things that I've heard through working and being affiliated with other adoptee-led organizations. They asked me to talk about what overseas adoptees are looking for when they decide to return to Korea. And it's kind of already been said on this panel, but I think the main thing that most adoptees are looking for when they return to Korea is just to learn about where they came from. They want to connect in some way with like a Korean experience. I know for myself, being adopted to Oklahoma in the United States and being the only person of color, the only Asian American, and well, besides my sister who's also here and she's a Korean adoptee, we were the only adoptees too in our community. So we did not know anything about being Korean. We didn't even know anything about being Asian. And in the way we were raised, you know, Asia, everyone was Asian. That, you know, it didn't matter if you're Korean, Japanese, or Chinese. They were all the same to our community. So I think that's the one thing is people are returning here wanting to know, you know, they want a Korean identity. I think a lot of adoptees are returning here and wanting to do birth searches, and some of them don't. But I do feel that that is, especially with what's going on right now, a lot of adoptees are interested in coming back here and finding out like why they were adopted, and they want some answers. So I think that that's definitely a policy issue that needs to be seriously considered and addressed. Is, you know, adoptees just want some answers. I did provide a list of some suggestions on page 61 in the handbook, and I'll just kind of go through that. But I also want to recognize that there are a lot of adoptees who are living in Korea right now who are attending this meeting today. So I'd also invite them to also discuss and share anything that they think isn't shared today. But I think the first thing that adoptees really need is complete access to their birth records. This is a right that we should all have. We should all be able to access our birth records. Yeah, and I mean, that's just, that's something that everyone would like. Whether an adoptee wants to use the birth record to find and meet their birth family is their own choice, and that's up to them. But either way, they should still be able to access and see their complete record. Another one is countrywide DNA testing. Yes, so we have groups in the United States who do DNA testing for adoptees, but that's not really helping because there's no DNA testing that's being supported in Korea. So unless you go to the police station, which is, I think the DNA at the police station is only for children that have been reported missing. And so there's no way that you could ever like find a sibling or a parent if you're not, you know, reported missing. So, so there really needs to be a lot of work in Korea to encourage DNA testing so that adoptees can, you know, reunite with birth family if they're interested in that. The access to competent mental health services and to address the trauma of adoption, that's very important for adoptees living in Korea, but it's also very important to make sure these services are available in the language that they speak, their first language. So whether it's English or it's French, they need to be able to access services that are high, like, great services and also be able to understand too, like the culture and the language too. They need those kind of resources. Kind of similar to what was talked about earlier today, I think a regional style house or a retreat similar to what Co-Root was, where adoptees can just share community together and feel they can be together and feel at home in Korea is definitely needed. So whether it's a community center or like kind of like a hotel style building or something, just where adoptees can come and just be in community and they can be supportive of each other. That's definitely needed. These are things that have come up in discussions that we've had with the organizations that I work with. We do community calls and stuff every month, and these are some ideas that are very much mentioned over and over from adoptees. I think more detailed information on adoptee-led organizations and resources also needs to be shared, not just among adoptees, but also among Koreans in general, so that when you have events like this and you invite experts, you're inviting a Korean adoptee experts to speak about Korean adoptees and about Korean adoptee issues and experiences. So I think that's something that's very important. Let's see here. Financial support for adoptee-led events and gatherings. I think OKA has done a great job in having the OKA adoptee gathering, which they're having in November. But there's a lot of other groups out there, that are adoptee-led, and adoptees, if they want to participate in those events, like ICA, the International Korean Adoptee Association, they have to pay for it themselves. And it's very expensive, to travel here and bring your family and attend these events. And so I think there needs to be more support for the organizations that are adoptee-led that are already doing stuff like that. And then there's also like the CON conference in the United States, which is the regional conference for adoptees. It would be great if we could have those conferences and not ask adoptees to pay for them. So that would be something that would be well appreciated. I do want to recognize, too, that OKA did send Deputy Director Kim to attend CON last year, and that was great. I think that was the first time in a while that happened, so it gave us the chance to actually meet and connect with, a representative from OKA. So I really do think that that should continue. Also, he attended, Senior Deputy Director Lee attended the ICA Australia conference the end of last year. And so I think that sending representatives from these organizations to other adoptee events that are happening in the rest of the world would also be helpful, because you're getting the experiences and perspectives of adoptees from all over who are not able to come here. Yes, let's see here. I think the Korean language and culture classes are very important, and I do feel like, to an extent, those are pretty easy to access. But I think, again, not all adoptees are interested in learning Korean. So, I think that's also something that needs to be taken into account. To learn a language like that, it's a lot. And then also to attend an event, which was mentioned earlier, and not be able to understand is also a lot, too, as an adoptee to experience. Employment opportunities besides just teaching English would be great. There are a lot of adoptees who decide to move back to Korea are usually have a plan, and they have a background, and they have an education. So it would be really great if they would be able to use that and actually work and find jobs here that match their skill level and backgrounds. Support programs also and resources for Korean birth mothers and families. So I am in reunion, which means I have been reunited with my birth family, and I know many adoptees who have. It's a lot, and so the birth family experience reuniting has a lot of different ways it can go, but also there's a lot of pressure and experiences because your Korean birth family doesn't really quite know how to understand or relate to you, and they have expectations, and they've got trauma of their own. So I think that having resources available for birth mothers and family would also be very helpful for adoptees who are returning back here. I think easier pathways to dual citizenship and F4 visas would be greatly appreciated. Those are great ways for that adoptees can get better training and get better jobs and just have, just an easier life here. And then I think another most important thing is to think about and remember the most vulnerable adoptees out there. And like the impact that affects them. And I'm talking about the deported adoptees. We really need to do everything that we can to support them and get them citizenship so that they can return to the United States. There's a big difference between adoptees who come here by choice and adoptees who are forced to come back and they can't leave. So I think, we need to definitely keep that in mind.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amanda Jo. She emphasized that this is the private personal view. However, I believe that she's speaking on behalf of all the overseas Korean adoptees, what they want, what they expect, what kind of support the overseas Korean adoptees need. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. As the adoptee, it's not easy to share their own experience and also honestly talking about their own experience, especially focusing on the needs and support that they expect. But they did so, and thank you so much once again, Dr. Jo. So now we will open the floor and have a Q&A session.
저희가
And we have time until 5:10. So if you have any questions to any of the panelists, please. You could be a question or it could be a comment or suggestions. So please raise your hand if you have anything to share with us.
네, 저기 예.
Thank you for taking my question. I just want to say that I'm really touched by all of your presentations today. I wanted to address something that Professor Kim mentioned about the different supports that were necessary for adoptees returning to Korea. And I thought a lot about my own experience, if I may share quickly. I returned to Seoul in 1997. This was at a time when people didn't even know who we were. They didn't even understand that we existed. And I suffered from physical assaults. I was assaulted at least 3 times, including getting hit by a car because I did not conform to gender norms or gender expectations. I was quite young. I had a lot of problems. Of course, that was very traumatic to go through that. And yet I end up coming back almost, several times I tried to come back every other year for the last almost 30 years. But I was so moved when you were talking about all these different things that we could be supported by, because this was never even a topic in, I would say, Korean people's consciousness that we existed, that we would even come back, we would even think about coming back. And the reason I bring this up is this thing that you said, the 적응 지원, which is for me like a adjustment support, but the translator actually translated it as assimilation. And I really want to push back against that, because adoption trauma and adoption situations are actually not just the adoptee problem. This is actually a larger societal problem. We did not choose to be sent away to be adopted overseas. The society allowed this to happen for many, many different reasons. I mean, I don't blame the common people of Korea, because it was mostly the governments and the powerful men who made this happen. But the Korean society has to take responsibility for those crimes that happened in the past. So what I would ask is also for support, is that the society needs to be educated about our existence. I mean, I haven't been assaulted since I've been here on this trip. That's probably not going to happen because I'm a lot older and people just respect older people. But I do want to say that they also need to be educated about the challenges that we face, and if they could know a little bit more about the circumstances in which many of us were sent away and the history of transnational adoption in general. We need to be included in Korean history, in modern Korean history. I don't see our stories in the museums, and I don't see our stories in the textbooks. And so that's what I would like to say. I would like to have a little bit more education for the common Korean people. Thank you.
Thank you very much about your interest and comments about my presentation. You seem to be fluent in Korean as well. So the adaptation is the right, but the translator could have seen it as adaptation might not cover everything. So we also use assimilation in Korean, but from adoptees perspective, assimilation might not be the right word. But the purpose of my presentation was to help the adoptees to adapt to the Korean society, and understanding requires interaction. It cannot be one-sided. And working with local residents is about helping each other out. Adoptees often come to Korea because they're mesmerized by Korean culture, K-culture, or like you are the children of adoptee parents, your parents was the adoptee, and they want to understand and know about Korean culture. And the adoptees shown in the movies don't speak for all of the adoptees. So we should make interactive efforts to understand each other better. So that needs to be included in the scope of support we provide to adoptees, and thank you for your positive feedback.
질문이나
Any other questions or opinions? Please raise your hand.
네.
Hi, Ann Bertelson again, an adoptee sent to America. I just want to, I don't think you meant it this way, Professor Kim, but I do want to be very clear. When adoptees return to Korea, what we want fundamentally is our right to our origin information. In the Hague Convention, it specifically says every child is entitled to know where they came from, when they were born. That is fundamentally why we come back. Yes, we may be interested in K-pop and in K-drama, but the fundamental reason we come here is to know who we are. You can talk to your children or your family or your peers about who you are, and part of who you are is understanding where you came from. I don't know my real name. I don't know my real birth date. I don't know where I actually was born. That's a fundamental gap in my family. There are 210,000 plus adoptees that you sent abroad. Just even here today, different organizations have quoted different numbers, and yet your immigration office has counted more than 210,000. So just right off the top, let's all agree on the total number so that you know how to support us. And we are here, and many of us can't be here, but those who are here, we are fighting for our origin information. That is part of our identity. Everything else is gravy on top so that we can have that return to our native tongue and our native culture. Okay?
예, 출생 기록
Regarding the birth information and birth record, of course, in the past, we have sent many adoptees overseas. Probably there was a lack of records or inaccurate information. And I fully understand where you're coming from about this. And the Korean government is trying its best to collect every little piece of information that it has and share that as transparently as possible, as imperfect as the information might be. And of course, K-pop was just an example I came up with. You might come back to Korea because of your thirst for your information of origin. And we would have to facilitate your access to that information by improving the related services further. And I personally will do my best to facilitate the process. Thank you very much for your comment. Yes, please go ahead. I'm Isumi. Hello.
Why K-pop jerked us as adoptees the wrong way is because when we come and try to learn the Korean language, we're learning what tourists want to learn, which is K-pop. We're not learning how to communicate with our families. We're not learning how to live in society. We're not learning how to read newspapers so that we can be informed and be actual contributors to society. What we're learning is basic how to get groceries, order food, and tell people it tastes good. That's not what we're really looking for. So when it comes to language needs, someone had once said early on that there's a really big gap about what's needed. It's because what an adoptee needs is, I need to know how to ask for my birth information. I need to know how to talk to my family if I see them again. I need to know how to talk to social services or the police if I'm doing a DNA test. Those kinds of questions and that kind of language isn't what's taught in schools. That's why we need an adoptee-specific program. And I've heard a lot of organizations kick back and say, well, adoptees don't come. We put together a program, but adoptees don't come. We don't come because your program doesn't meet our needs. If it doesn't meet our needs, why would we come? And then we're graded on something that we don't care about, or we don't need to know because we already know it. So we're held to this standard. Like I went to Yonsei's language program, spent a lot of money on that program for a year. And that teacher dogged me the entire year. And eventually, because I was crying after every class, I said, why are you doing this to me? Why are you singling me out? And he said, because you're Korean. And every Korean's gonna expect you to speak Korean, so you need to be more perfect than anyone else. So everyone else got away with saying, 안녕하세요. But I had to say, 안녕하세요. And if I didn't say it exactly, 안녕하세요, and not 안녕하세요, I would get ridiculed. So that's another reason why people quit the language programs, is because they're getting singled out and they can't change it. Like, I didn't choose to be born with this face, just like I didn't choose to be adopted and taken away out of my country. I would have loved to learn my mother language, but my parents were told assimilate to the US. So no access to Korea, no access to the history of this nation and what it went through in order to build itself up to be an amazing economy. But I just thought I would say that. Sorry.
네, 감사드립니다. 네, 또 혹시
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments or opinions? It could be a question as well.
Sorry, one more question, if you don't mind me asking. It's very, very short. How do I say, I'm really bad at the honorific. I'm sorry, I want to say Ms. Chung was speaking about the deportations. I'm wondering, this has always been on my mind, is it possible for South Korea to just refuse to issue a South Korean passport to an adoptee who's in deportation process, and therefore they're not able to be deported to South Korea? Is that possible for South Korea to stand up to the US and say, no, we're not going to give you a travel certificate, we're not going to give you a passport, and therefore this is your problem because you screwed up? Is that possible?
Actually, there have been some adoptees who Korea has not taken back. But the reasoning is it's just different for unique situations. If one adoptee, she's disabled, so there's no way, and because of her medical issues and the treatment that she needs, there's no way she would make it in Korea. So yes, they can say no. In this administration, I don't know. I think it's just different. But yes, Korea, of all the countries, has been the most involved and supportive with helping getting the citizenship issue resolved. We still have a long way to go, but yes. So the answer to your question is yes. A country can refuse to take back a deported adoptee.
I mean, that sounds more because of discriminatory practices in a way, or because they wouldn't be able to support that person back in this country. But I guess my thought is, can they politically resist and say, no, this is your problem. You didn't get this person citizenship. We gave these children to your care. They are now your custody, and therefore you have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. I mean, I also know with other adoptees, like from Vietnam, like they also have been told they could not come back, and then but then the adoptees just end up stateless, living in the United States with nothing. So it has happened though. That's another issue that we need to resolve.
네.
When a Korean child is adopted in the U.S. and the U.S. state court will approve adoption, and then the federal government will issue U.S. citizenship. Without that process, a child is born in Korea, so his or her citizenship is still valid. If Korea refuses that person would end up being stateless. So the Korean government seems to have no option. We cannot say no to a born Korean citizen. So there seems to be a lot of diplomatic issues here. If that person acquires, we have to support so that that person acquires citizenship or permanent residence in the U.S. And if the adoptees feel better sense of belonging to the U.S. society, then the Korean government should help them to gain citizenship, because doing so would be our social obligation.
네, 감사드립니다. 네,
Thank you very much. Yes, we will accommodate one last comment.
Hello, sorry I came late, so maybe this question have been already answered, but in the future, I was wondering what kind of coordination or collaboration will be set up between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Welfare and Health and Welfare, and the Ministry of Justice. Yeah, in the purpose of providing services to international adoptees.
네, 뭐
I think taking action for the U.S. adoptees is most important for now. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is now making legislative support to help Korean adoptees gain U.S. citizenship, and the U.S. Congress, we are supporting the U.S. Congress to ratify the Adoptee Citizenship Act by persuading the U.S. congressmen. On top of that, well, citizenship issues are considered a sovereignty right. So it's difficult for foreign government to intervene too deeply to certain issues, because we have to stick to the human rights issues for that. we cannot be too aggressive in pushing these issues because this could be considered U.S. sovereign rights. Because of time, we would have to wrap up this panel discussion session. I would like to thank the 3 panelists for their insights, and I would like to also thank the audience for sharing their insights and experience with us. And I would like to also thank the distinguished guests and everybody in the audience for joining us till the end of this meeting. Thank you very much. I would like to also thank Professor Kim for moderating this panel discussion, Legislative Investigator Jung, Professor Kim, Dr. Cho for joining us for this panel discussion. So we would like to now conclude policy consultation meeting on domestic settlement support for overseas Korean adoptees. I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. And also, I would like to thank the Korean adoptees around the world who have watched this conference on YouTube. Thank you very much.
수고하셨어요.
내일부터 정리를 하셔가지고 미리 준비해 오셨어요?
아니 원고 받은 거 그냥 조금 보고 왔어요. 네네. 아니 지금
내가 과장이 있는 것 같아.
지금 오늘은 좀 그랬네요. 너무 다양한 리뷰를 가진 사람들이 모여가지고